Hey everybody, and welcome to another installment of MMA JudgeCast. I'm excited to do another episode with you guys and share some more of my personal insight, opinions, and thoughts, reactions, what have you, of the recent events that happened this past weekend. All right. I'll only like to touch base on the main event of the Bellator, which was Cris Cyborg and Julia Budd for the title in their division, which is the 145, I believe. And then I'll go into the UFC FightNight 166. It is with Junior Dos Santos and Curtis Blaydes as the main event there. With that being said, I would like to kick off with the main event at Bellator. I'm just going to focus on that one since that was the main headliner for that fight. Not to discredit anything that happened within that whole event and all the other fighters. There's a lot of great fights there too. But the biggest story there was just Cris Cyborg, and could she get another title in another organization? It's kind of like the equivalent of the Triple Crown winner. You know, we have an MMA fighter that's going cross platforms and being successful in each platform and getting a strap for each platform. Question was she going to do it again here in Bellator? She did. She did very convincingly in a way. You know, the significance of this fight was if she wins, she'd be that person to lock in another title in another premier organization, you know, where there's so few that do that. And she did, you know. Cris Cyborg was only 34, which I didn't know she was that young. I thought she was a little older. You know, she's been around for so long in the game. To know that she's 34 years old is crazy. She's a younger one, as in Julia Budd was 36. Both were coming with only 2 losses at the time and plenty of experience. So with that being said, you know, the first round, Budd attempted to control early, pinning her to the fence. You know, they were doing a lot of that fence action, very similar to the Holly Holmes fight from the previous week, and only the difference between that fight of Holly Holmes and this one was there was action from the clinch and from being pinned in the fence. And so they were very busy. It wasn't just like, I'm gonna hold you there and keep you there for a long period of time and ease a win. No, they were doing the dirty boxing deal. They were clinch fighting. There was action there with them. So it was very tough there. But Cyborg also got a quick takedown at the first round. Julia Budd got up quickly. She just sprang up, and the action went back and forth, pinning each other at the fence. The round ended with Julia Budd falling into a triangle attempt, and later going into an armbar, but you know, there was an escape there. You know, Cyborg went for the triangle, transitioned to the armbar, but nothing came out of that one other than putting some ground and pound on her. And then there was also the knee to the head that Cyborg did on Julia Budd, which was, you know, a big no-go on that one. The second round started off strong again for Cyborg, and then it went back to some clinch warfare and things like that nature. Julia really started to slow down now. She was kind of fighting in her own. I guess the first round where I gave it to was still Cris Cyborg, which was a 10-9, but Julia was still in it. The second round, it was more so her starting to slow down and lose some steam. She was still in the fight. She was still peppering Cyborg, but it was still a 10-9 for Cyborg as well. The third round began again with some takedown attempts from Julia from the fence, but it ended up being reversed and going to Cyborg's favor, ending the round with some more ground and pound from the full mount. You know, Cyborg started dominating, controlling the fight from there. Another 10-9, and then going into the end, which was, you know, a 10-8 on round 4, with Cyborg just TKOing Julia. congrats to Cyborg for making history and becoming another champion and the featherweight champion of Bellator. Going on to the UFC Fight Night 166. This Fight Night was, other than it being the story for the heavyweight fighters trying to get a claim to the heavyweight title, we had a lot of contenders from the UFC Contenders show that Dana White was hosting on the UFC app, and so that was cool too, because you would see all these up and comers coming up and putting their own. Big shout out to one of my friends, Miguel Baeza, who was also one of those guys that was in the Contender Series and now is off to do his second UFC fight. But back to the UFC Fight Night at 166. Jamal Hill and Darko Stosic. Those are two prospects as well. They competed in the light heavyweights. That's where the main card kicked off at, was with those two. Jamal Hill was the favorite there. I think he's fresh from the Contender Series himself in a very convincing manner that Dana White was like, I gotta have this dude. So he came in and, full confidence, all this hype behind him. While Darko comes in from, I think he's got already 4 fights in the UFC. This would have been his 4th. He's coming straight out of Krokop's camp, actually. So he's one of those dudes straight from Croatia, I believe. Nonetheless, he's coming from an old school solid fighter. Anyway, this was Hill's debut, in contrast to this being Darko's 4th fight in a row for the UFC. Round 1, all Hill coming out strong with his strikes, but Darko's, he had some heavy counters, man. His hands were like really strong and heavy, and he slowed down Hill a little bit with the power to make him, hey, you're gonna respect me. And that's what I would see as a judge too. Is like, are we getting this thing? Is the other guy's coming in strong, but is the other guy taking back control and fighting back and claiming his respect too? So that was noted, and it was a very close round for me personally. I think I could have given it to Darko. However, Hill was so much crisper in his strikes and cleaner that I had to go in this very close first round, 10-9, going to Jamal. The second round, it was a lot more of the same. It began with Hill settling into his rhythm again, doing his clean shots straight at Darko. It was a lot more of Darko again, getting those big, heavy power shots. But his footwork was being, in Hill was being utilized in a lot more variety. It had more dynamic range. He was cutting angles more on Darko, so he was making it a really tough time on the stand-up. Even though Darko was holding his own, there was just so much more movement coming out of Hill, to the point where the notch had to go straight to Hill again, 10-9. Very good round. It was a good fight, very entertaining to see. It was good for us as fans as well. We're going into the third round. Hill still continued with the same game plan of, that sticking and moving and making things, peppering them all over the place, giving a lot of volume for light heavyweights. That's a lot of action. It was fun to watch, especially when Darko was still in the game and he was still popping them hard. Darko did score some great takedowns in this one, but Hill would just spring back up to his feet. Hill seems to have started to slow down in this later round. You started seeing it just a bit, to the point where Darko was able to catch him again and take another takedown, but he still couldn't keep him down. He couldn't keep Hill down. So in the end, I think Darko had in overall the whole fight a total of 6 takedowns to Hill not having any, which he still didn't need any. I think Darko also could have stolen this round and may have stolen it. So in that sense, with all the takedowns that he pushed on this last round and Hill slowing down, Darko took this round with 10-9 to him. Nonetheless, Hill got it. I scored it a 29-27. Every other judge as well gave it a 29-27, going in favor of Jamal Hill, making his debut. Congrats to him. And we were all on the same level. I think we all believed. I didn't look at the judge scorecards or anything at this time, but just listening to the scores, I truly feel like I was probably on par with them, giving the 2 first rounds to Jamal, and then the last round probably to Darko. Other than that, let's go on to the women in the strawweight division that followed, which is Hannah Cyphers. She was the hometown girl, and Angela Hill, who, in the story of this girl is a former Invicta champ, and she's been busy all year. She's had a total of 5 fights already within under a year. 5 fights under a year, that's a lot. The girl's been putting in time, and she's a former champion, and she's coming in as the favorite in this fight against the hometown girl in Hannah Cyphers. Cyphers is also coming from a back-to-back win. She is not as busy as Angela Hill, but I think Angela is a gamer. She's on it. Anyway, let's go into the action. Round one had Hill working her height and her range, keeping the distance on her. She was working a nice jab, but then Cyphers would come in and close the gap and get some of those close range shots on her. Other than that, it was a close round. There was a lot of strikes in this one. One being the shorter fighter coming in tight and hard, while the other one kept the range and mobility. I think Hill still took the round with a 10-9. Round 2 was a little bit different. Hill continued controlling the fight from the feet, with the difference now that she was able to lock down some takedowns and put some more variety in the fight. The takedown actually was a nice one. It was a Thai clinch takedown. It was very Thai influence, like Thai boxing. It was very, very sweet. Like the trip came out, I believe, from a knee or something. But it's those rare takedowns that you see that are not very wrestler or judo based or whatnot. It's more in the striking world. So that was a nice little takedown. She followed it up with Hill dominating on the ground. Like it was completely one-sided once they got there. Hill just took the mount and began her ground and pound assault and dominated TKO on the final minute. So that gives her a 10-8 from me, but it really doesn't matter because she got her TKO. Good job, Hill. She looks like she wants to fight another fight later on in the year, maybe within the next couple of months. And I don't blame her. She's cashing in these rounds. She's becoming a serious contender, and she came out unscathed. Why not give her another fight? Whoever drops out, put her in there. She could be another title shot contender within the next year or so. I don't really want to push her too much, but it's looking good for her. It was very fun. We're going into the next one, which is the flyweights in the men's division, with Jordan Espinosa and Alex Perez. These guys are also both contenders, veterans from the Contenders show. So it's nice to see this. This was Alex Perez's 6th appearance, while Espinosa was looking to get a 2nd victory in the UFC. So one's been in the game a little longer than the other, at least in the UFC. And wow, this didn't go past the first round at all. It ended with Alex sinking in a nasty, tight, I've never seen a tight arm triangle like this. He did it from the far side, inside Espinosa's half guard. So he reached, normally you want to cross the body over to the other side and lock in that arm triangle. But he did it from the far side, inside the dude's guard. So that must have been such a tight grip. It just goes to show how tight the guy's grip was. That's what it's telling you. That the fact that he was able to do it from the far side, inside a guard, forget it. This guy chokes out watermelons like nothing. So Alex is now 5-1 in the UFC. Congrats to him. Arm triangle in the first 2 minutes and 33 seconds. Good job for him. And now moving on to the co-main event with Mike Chiesa and Rafael Dos Anjos. This was a welterweight bout. That's right. You know, they both moved up in weight. One was the former lightweight champion, Rafael Dos Anjos. Chiesa used to compete a lot in the lightweight. But now that, you know, it just seems like the welterweight division is just so exciting. And I think a lot of it was because the lightweight division used to be exciting. And now all these awesome fighters that were in the lightweight are now welterweights. Like these two guys, Rafael Dos Anjos, Mike Chiesa, Conor McGregor is another one, Jorge Masvidal. And the list just goes on how all these welterweights, Cowboy Cerrone, all these lightweights just now all of a sudden are in the 170 division, making it much more exciting. And this one was, you know, no less of that, where we have Mike Chiesa and the former lightweight champion, Rafael Dos Anjos. We got a story here. Chiesa just seems to have found his place in this welterweight division. He doesn't have to have this nasty weight cut anymore. He can come in also nice and healthy and ready to compete in the 170s. And he's been doing great with back-to-back wins, mostly over notable fighters in Carlos Condon and Diego Sanchez. Now he's being tested now further with the skills of Rafael Dos Anjos, a black belt and a great striker with knockout power and a former champion at that. So let's see, which leads into Rafael Dos Anjos. He's ranked number 5, I believe. He is the favorite for this fight. And he is looking to also move up and lock in a contendership for the title as well. You know, he wants to taste that gold once again. He had it before. But man, both men are great fighters, and they showed it on this one where we have round 1. There was a lot of back and forth on the feet. However, Chiesa closes in the gap, locks in a little trip takedown into the ground, and all of a sudden he's making, you know, the black belt and Rafael Dos Anjos struggle a bit, you know, on the ground. Chiesa just dominates and poses, you know, submission attempts from the back, you know, and just controls, you know, just rides the back for a little bit. RDA eventually escapes, goes back to the feet, but Chiesa gets another takedown. RDA bounces back, round finishes. I got the round going to my Chiesa 10-9. You know, those takedowns and the dominant control he had over another black belt just go to show, especially when he rode the back for a good amount of time. Round 2 was showed a lot of similarity to the first round, at least in the beginning, with, you know, some back and forth on the feet. Chiesa didn't want any of it. Clearly, he felt more confident on the ground, and that's where he took it again. He tried to take control again on to the ground, you know, locking in clinches and takedown attempts. But the funny thing is, RDA at this time also went for a takedown attempt, but didn't happen so much for him in his favor. And goes back to Chiesa doing some more takedowns and stealing the round. But in this sense, RDA for me took the round 10-9, just because the fights stood longer. RDA was able to put more damage on Chiesa, work his feet. He did get a takedown. He did do some attempts. He did look a little busy. He didn't look like he just wanted to get a takedown after takedown like how Chiesa would. Chiesa didn't want to really stand with him much. And that's what I was seeing. But we're going back to round 3. Immediately, Chiesa kind of gets a takedown and in the final minute of the round and gains solid control. He's just taking it in right in that first minute. He's already working the groundwork, and then somewhere in the middle, they ended up in the 50-50 guard. That's just them working for leg locks and this and that, and they both have a strong leg lock game, but it wasn't much. Later on, they just scrambled and ended up, you know, out of the 50-50 into RDA's full guard. That's where it ended. just a lot of jiu-jitsu going here and there with some, MMA light slaps and punches. The round ended with just them being Chiesa on RDA's half guard. The fight for me went in this round 10-9, my Chiesa's favor. So right now I have pretty much a 29-28 going in the favor of my Chiesa over RDA. And two other judges felt the same way. They gave him a 29-28, whereas another judge just gave it all to my Chiesa with a 30-27. The funny one is, at the end, Chiesa only called out Colby Covington, and that was it. He was done. So I actually would like to see that fight. I don't know how he'll hold up against Colby Covington because, even though the dude got his jaw broken and talks a lot of smack, as a fan and analyst or whatever you want to call, Colby's got a lot of stand-up for him. I don't know if he'll be able to take down Colby as he was doing to RDA. I mean, Colby's a great wrestler, Div 1 wrestling, with, strong, high-volume energy and his strikes. He's getting better, man. He just does a lot of this going on, but Colby can do it. But I would still want to see Mike Chiesa and Colby Covington. Let's hope that's his comeback fight after he heals up and takes up Chiesa for that challenge. On to the main event. Main event, heavyweights again. Somebody usually is going to get knocked out when it comes to heavyweights, and, that's what makes them exciting. They don't, play patty cake out there. So we're going into Curtis Blaydes and JDS. JDS, a former heavyweight champion, solid boxing, ranked number 4, feels like he wants to get back into title contention, needs this win to get back into title contention. He's only ranked 4th. The top 4 or 5 in the heavyweight rankings is super saturated already as it is. But, you just got to win and win convincingly to be the next man in charge. Okay, and that's what JDS was looking for, and so is Curtis Blaydes, the newcomer, the youngin. He's, probably the only heavyweight in the top 5 that's under 30 years old, and a great wrestler. And Curtis Blaydes outranks the former champion in 3rd, just 1 spot above, but that's all that matters. And he is considered the favorite over the former champ. So there was some cool stuff there going on. The first round opened up with, them filling out each other. It was kind of a little slow. It looked like Curtis was, beginning to work his takedowns, but he couldn't get it because, JDS's movement felt like he was very prepared for those takedowns. He was moving around, a lot of good defense going on. So he was being very defensive in the round. But that's all it was. It was very defensive, and his boxing kind of was missing a few times. And he was doing like these weird, crazy Hadouken lead uppercuts, man. It looked like he looked like Ken from Street Fighter, just charging at him with these lead uppercuts that you really don't want to do. But he was pulling everything into him as well. No matter what, 10-9, Curtis Blaydes' first round. It was all him. Curtis was doing a good job in controlling the veteran. And then here we go into round 2. Blaydes takes a shot and lands some hits. And we started going and seeing that Curtis changed the rhythm on JDS. You see he was faking takedowns, making JDS anticipate him. And instead he just, faked him and popped him hard with a hard right, just psyching out JDS, making him think he had to protect that takedown lot. So it totally did change that rhythm. Curtis changed up his game plan while JDS didn't change anything in his playbook, while Curtis did the audible. You see him do the takedown, fake it, boom, right hand, hurts JDS, and then just continues with an onslaught of strikes and wins a TKO finish, in round 2 of 106, the first minute, I don't know who's going to get a title shot after this. Obviously Curtis Blaydes is deserving of one, But he's got another dude in Francis Ngannou who's still got another fight coming up, and he's ranked, I believe, 2nd. And not only that, there's DC still, who was present there, and it was kind of funny because he was doing all these interviews, and you see DC, I'm the one that's deserving of the next title shot. So it's just a super saturated, very congested division right now, at least in the top half, for who's going to be next against Stipe Miocic. I think it's probably going to be DC. Francis is still another contender that is well deserving of this title shot. And then now you got Curtis Blaydes, you know, sitting there waiting for his shot too, because 3 great fighters, 1 title. Let's see who gets it, who's going to keep it. I believe Stipe might hold on to it if he rematches DC. Not sure how I'll go with Ngannou or Curtis, but those are 2 fights I want to see. Stipe fight Ngannou or Stipe fighting Curtis. I'm okay not seeing DC fight for the title against Stipe, but you know, it's not my call, and I'll still watch it, you know, and I'll still record the times on it. So other than that, you know, it was a great UFC Fight Night. It was nice to see all the hype and lead on going into the next UFC pay-per-view coming up, which is Jon Jones and Reyes. I'm actually excited for that main event. I want to see Jon Jones, and I want to see him go against Reyes. Reyes is a great up-and-comer, and Jon Jones is the pound-for-pound king. It is undeniable, and I just want to see how that goes. Maybe Jon Jones will finally shut this young buck up, or maybe the new kid in the block is gonna dethrone the king. Who knows? But I'm very intrigued. I want to see it. And I want actually pulling for the old school, well, now old school fighter in Jon Jones. I want to see this happen. Let's see. And that's a wrap, guys. I'd like to thank all of you for stopping by and being a part of this and listening to all my jibber jabbering and babbling about all the fights that just happened. I look forward to doing the next few events coming up, and most especially the Jon Jones Reyes pay-per-view that's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks or so. The only other thing I have to do and worry about is I have a local fight that I have to judge personally later on this week. So I'll be kind of geared up to that. So if there's any other events for this weekend, I'm probably not going to cover it all the way up and just wait it out until the Jon Jones one comes up in the following week or so. I'll probably give a recap of the local fight I saw and share my scores and whatnot with that, but that's about it. Have a great night and catch you on the next one.